What if I told you time does not exist, not time is complicated, not time is relative? I mean, at the deepest level of reality, time may not be there at all. Open your physics textbook, look at the fundamental equations that describe the universe. In some of them, time flows. In others it bends, but in the most radical formulations of quantum gravity, time disappears completely. Erased, the universe at its foundation may be timeless. You experience a past, you anticipate a future. You feel the present slipping through your fingers like sand. But physics does not describe sand slipping. It describes a frozen geometric structure, a four-dimensional spacetime, where every event simply is. No cosmic clock ticks behind the curtain, no universal now. Sweeps across the stars, motion changes time. Gravity stretches it, speed distorts it, and in the deepest attempts to unify quantum mechanics with gravity, the equations work perfectly well without time as a variable at all. Pause and think about that. If the fundamental description of reality does not require time, then what exactly are you experiencing? Is time something the universe produces, or something your brain constructs? Consider this. The laws governing particles are almost perfectly symmetrical. Run them forward, run them backward, they don't care. The direction you call future is not written into the core code of reality. It emerges from entropy, from statistical imbalance, from initial conditions of the cosmos, not from a ticking universal drumbeat. So when someone says scientists agree time doesn't exist, they don't mean your watch is fake. They mean something much deeper. They mean time might be like temperature. Temperature feels fundamental, hot, cold, warmth. But zoom into atoms, and you find only motion. Temperature is an emergent property of countless microscopic interactions. Time might be similar. At the smallest scale, there may be only relationships between events, correlations, quantum entanglements, geometric structures. No flowing river, no advancing moment, just a vast configuration of reality, timeless at its core. And yet you wake up every morning feeling pushed from yesterday into tomorrow. That tension between lived experience and mathematical description is where the mystery lies. Tonight, we are going to tear that tension open. We are going to explore why relativity killed the universal present, how entropy created the illusion of flow, why the block universe suggests the future may already exist, and how some of our most advanced theories eliminate time entirely. And by the end, you may realize something unsettling. The universe might not be moving at all. It might simply be there, and the flow of time you feel could be the shadow cast by something far more timeless than you ever imagined. You rarely question time. You question your beliefs. You question other people. You question news memories, even your own decisions. But you do not question the existence of time. It feels too obvious, too immediate, too woven into the fabric of your experience to doubt. Time feels more real than space. You can imagine space bending. You can imagine distance shrinking. You can picture traveling faster, farther, exploring new worlds. But time feels like the stage on which all of that happens. It feels fundamental, the silent background that never disappears. Every thought you've ever had was stamped with a before and after. Every memory you hold carries the mark of then. Every hope you project carries the label later. Your identity itself is strung together by time. Without it, who are you? That unquestioned assumption that time is basic is where the investigation begins. Physics has a brutal habit of dismantling intuitions that feel undeniable. The earth feels still, it is spinning. The ground feels flat, it curves through space. Solid matter feels continuous, it is mostly empty space. Again and again, human certainty has surrendered to deeper structure. Time might be the next surrender. What does it mean for something to be fundamental? It means it cannot be reduced to something deeper. It means it appears in the most basic description of reality. Space once seemed fundamental, but we learned that space and time are not separate. They interlock into space-time, a unified geometry. Gravity, once imagined as a force pulling objects, turned out to be the curvature of that geometry. So ask a sharper question. When we write the deepest equations describing the universe, what role does time actually play? In many of the equations governing motion, time appears as a parameter, a variable that orders change. But that does not automatically mean it is fundamental. It might be bookkeeping. It might be a coordinate choice. It might be a way of slicing something deeper. Consider temperature. It feels fundamental. Hot and cold are undeniable sensations. Yet temperature is not basic. At the microscopic level, there is only motion, atoms vibrating, colliding. Temperature emerges when you average over enormous numbers of particles. It is real, measurable, powerful, but it is not part of the deepest layer. Time could share that status. You experience time as flow, a movement from past to present to future. But pause for a moment and examine that feeling. Where does it actually occur? Not in the sky, not in the vacuum of space. It occurs in your awareness. Your brain is a physical system processing information, updating internal states, forming memories. Those updates create the sensation of progression, but a sensation is not proof of fundamental status. Imagine you are reading a book. As you turn each page, the story unfolds, characters change, events develop. You feel suspense because you do not know what comes next, yet the entire story already exists in the printed pages. The unfolding happens in your interaction with it, not in the ink itself. Could reality be similar? We instinctively assume the universe is generating moments one after another, as if existence were being rendered frame by frame. But that assumption is never directly observed. What we observe are events, interactions, measurements, correlations. The idea that the universe is moving through time is an interpretation layered on top of those observations. If you strip away perception and ask what the fundamental description must include, something strange happens. The necessity of a flowing time begins to weaken. You might object, of course time is fundamental, things change. Ice melts, stars burn, people age. Change requires time, but does it? Change requires difference between states. If there exists a structure in which different configurations coexist as parts of a whole, then what you call change might be movement within that structure, not an external clock pushing reality. Forward, when you watch a landscape from a moving train, the scenery appears to flow past you. Trees sweep backward. Mountains glide across your vision, yet the landscape is not flowing. You are moving relative to it. If time is not fundamental, then the flow you feel might be analogous, a result of your trajectory through a deeper static entity. Even more unsettling is the fact that the present moment feels sharp and privileged. You feel anchored to now, but why should one instant be special in a vast universe? Physics increasingly suggests that there is no globally privileged moment. Different observers, moving differently, define different sets of simultaneous events. There is no master clock stitching them together. If no universal present exists, then the idea of a single moving now, sweeping across the cosmos, becomes difficult to maintain. The assumption that time is fundamental is tied to psychological necessity. Memory forces asymmetry. You remember earlier states of your brain, you do not remember later ones. That asymmetry produces narrative identity. It produces anticipation, regret, fear, ambition. It produces the sense that something is passing, but psychological asymmetry does not guarantee ontological primacy. The deeper question is ruthless. If all physical events can be described without invoking a privileged moving present, then what exactly is time adding? In some advanced theoretical frameworks, especially those attempting to reconcile gravity with quantum mechanics, time does not appear in the usual way at all. Instead of a universe evolving moment by moment, you get a structure defined by relationships, correlations between events, constraints that must be satisfied globally, no ticking required. This does not mean your watch is wrong. It means a watch is a device that measures change relative to internal periodic motion. It does not measure a metaphysical river flowing outside the universe. It measures comparison, oscillations against oscillations. The assumption that time exists independently as an invisible conveyor belt carrying reality forward may be unnecessary. Reality might be self-contained, complete, structured. The discomfort you feel when imagining the absence of time is a clue. It reveals how deeply your cognition relies on sequential processing. Your thoughts arrive one after another. Your sentences unfold word by word. Even this idea is reaching you in a sequence. Sequential processing feels like evidence of time's flow. But it might merely reflect the architecture of conscious systems, embedded in a larger, timeless framework. The bold move of physics is not to deny your experience, but to reinterpret it. What if time is not the container of events, but a pattern we extract from relationships between them? What if time is not a thing, but a description like temperature or pressure, emerging from deeper invariance? That would mean the most obvious feature of your existence is not basic, it is derivative. And if time is derivative, then the foundation of reality lies somewhere stranger, in geometry, in quantum correlations, in structures not organized by flow, but by consistency. You trust time because you have never stood outside it, but physics dares to ask, what if there is no outside because there was never a river to begin with? If time does not exist in the way you think it does, then something else must replace it. You cannot simply remove time and leave a void. You must replace flow with structure, motion with geometry, becoming with being. This is where the idea of spacetime becomes unavoidable. Instead of imagining the universe as a three-dimensional space, evolving moment by moment, imagine it as a four-dimensional entity, not space plus time as separate ingredients, but a unified fabric where every event, every explosion of a star, every heartbeat, every whispered word, occupies a coordinate in a vast geometric structure. In this view, the universe is not happening, it is extended. Picture a mountain range. You stand in one valley and can only see a portion of the terrain. From your limited vantage point, peaks appear and disappear as you walk, but the range itself does not grow into existence as you approach it. It is already fully there. Your journey reveals different regions sequentially, but the total structure is complete. Now elevate that metaphor into 4 dimensions. Your life is not a flicker appearing at birth and vanishing at death. It is a continuous thread, what physicists call a world line, stretching from your first cellular division to your final breath. That entire thread exists within spacetime, just as the entire mountain range exists within geography. You experience only one cross, section at a time, because your consciousness moves along that thread. But movement along a structure is not the same as the structure moving. This challenges the deepest intuition you have, that the future does not yet exist. You imagine the universe as generating new slices of reality moment by moment, as if there were a cosmic spotlight illuminating one layer at a time while the rest remains dark. But when physicists analyze the mathematics governing spacetime, there is no spotlight. There is no distinguished present advancing across the manifold. There is only a 4-dimensional whole. Think about simultaneity. You assume that now applies everywhere, that while you listen to this, distant galaxies are sharing the same present moment. But observers moving relative to you will slice spacetime differently. Events you label as future might belong to their present. Events you consider simultaneous may not be simultaneous for them. If multiple observers can legitimately disagree about which events are happening now, then the idea of a universal present collapses. The simplest explanation is that all events exist in the structure, and now is simply a perspective, a particular way of slicing the whole. In that sense, the present is not fundamental, it is relational. Imagine a loaf of bread. Each slice represents what an observer calls now. Different angles of slicing produce different cross-sections. None is privileged by the loaf itself. The entire loaf is real. The slices are perspectives imposed upon it. The block universe emerges from this reasoning. In this conception, past and future are not metaphysical categories. separating existence from non-existence. They are regions within the block. The birth of a star billions of years ago and the fading of another billions of years ahead are simply coordinates, connected by space-time intervals, woven into the same fabric. The discomfort comes from language. We say the past is gone, but gone where? If space-time is a four-dimensional entity, past events are not annihilated. They are located at earlier coordinates along world lines. They are as fixed in the structure as distant cities are fixed in space. You cannot revisit yesterday because your world line does not loop back. But inability to revisit is not proof of non-existence. Consider a film reel again, but extend the analogy further. Every frame exists simultaneously on the strip. The drama of the story arises because light passes through frames sequentially. But the film does not change as it is projected. It remains the same object. Consciousness may be analogous to the projector's light, illuminating successive segments of a static sequence. In this view, change is not fundamental motion through an external time dimension. Change is the relationship between different slices of spacetime. It is contrast between neighboring regions. Just as a path winding up hill differs in elevation at each point, your life differs in configuration along its world line. The entire path exists, even though you experience it step by step. This perspective has profound implications. If the block universe is correct, then the future is not an empty void waiting to crystallize. It is already part of the structure. Your choices, your doubts, your achievements, they are embedded in your world line. From within your current slice, the future feels open because you lack information about its details. But epistemic openness does not imply ontological indeterminacy. A character in a novel cannot see beyond the current page. Yet the remaining chapters are printed. Determinism is often confused with fatalism here, but the distinction matters. Fatalism suggests helplessness. Determinism within a block universe suggests completeness. Your decisions are not imposed from outside. They are woven into the geometry. They are not foreign to you, they are you, extended. The block universe also reframes causality. Causes and effects are relationships between events along world lines, constrained by light cones and physical laws. The ordering remains consistent locally, but the global structure does not require a moving present to enforce it. Spacetime geometry encodes which events can influence others. That geometric structure replaces a universal ticking clock. You might ask, if the universe is static, why do we perceive motion? Because your brain is a dynamical system embedded in that structure. Along your world line, physical states of your brain differ. Some states contain records of others. That memory structure creates the illusion of passage. One configuration remembers another and interprets that difference as past, but those configurations coexist in the block. The sensation of flow is a feature of certain regions of spacetime, specifically regions containing conscious systems with asymmetric information storage. It does not require time itself to flow. Imagine an ant walking along a painted stripe that spirals around a cylinder. The ant experiences turning, curvature, progression, but from a higher, dimensional view, the stripe is a fixed pattern. The movement is the ant's trajectory, not the stripe's transformation. Likewise, you traverse your world line, interpreting succession as flow. The block remains unmoving. This perspective is not mere philosophy. It emerges naturally when combining relativity with the absence of a preferred present. Once you accept that there is no universal simultaneity, treating all events as equally real becomes the most coherent option. Existence becomes tenseless, not was or will be, but simply is at different coordinates. The radical shift is subtle yet enormous. The universe may not be a process. It may be an object, vast, intricate, four-dimensional. You are not being carried forward by time. You are located within a structured continuum. The future is not rushing toward you. It is elsewhere in the geometry. And the sense of unfolding is not a property of the cosmos itself, but of how consciousness navigates an already complete design.